I'm going to introduce our speaker today. Amber Hollabaugh is an ex-hooker, incest survivor, biracial, radical feminist, high femme lesbian, working class, white trash organizer, and AIDS activist. Her range of perspectives is enough to make you dizzy. Born in rural Southern California to a gypsy father and an Irish mother, Hollabaugh suffered through her father's advances, her mother's physical abuse, and relentless poverty to emerge as an important political activist in the queer civil rights movement and the fight against AIDS. A well-known activist, Hollabaugh serves on the boards of several organizations, including Queers for Economic Justice, Lesbian and Gay Aging Issues Network of ASA, and Generation 5. She is also on the editorial board of GLQ, the Journal of Lesbian and Gay Studies. Her work has earned her several accolades, including the Susan B. Love Award for Outstanding Achievement in Women's Health. She is the celebrated author of My Dangerous Desires, A Queer Girl Dreaming Her Way Home, and the director and co-producer of The Heart of the Matter, a documentary film focusing on women's sexuality, denial, and risk for HIV and AIDS, which won the 1994 Sundance Film Festival Freedom of Expression Award and premiered on PBS's prestigious POV film series. Amber has worked as senior strategist for the National Gay and Lesbian Task Force, and previously she was the director of national initiatives at SAGE, Services and Advocacy for LGBT Elders. She is now at Howard Brown as Chief Officer of Elder and LBTI Women's Services. Please join me in welcoming Amber Hollabaugh.
The list gets longer and longer. This is like, oh my God. Let's open first because I want some. I really want to thank all of you for being here and to talk about why it was really meaningful to me when Cecilia got a hold of me. I had sent a whole list at kind of exploring the idea that I might come, and I'd sent a whole list of different kinds of issues that I could talk about because I work in a lot of different areas. And traditionally, my experience has often been that people want me to come and do work around sexuality. I've been a sexual radical, working on social justice and sexuality issues, sexual minority community issues, desire, the impact and the importance of the erotic to a social justice agenda. So often, especially in colleges, that's the thing that people want me to come and talk about. And so I was both shocked and thrilled when she said, no, actually the thing we'd love to have you come talk about is aging. Because my experience doing this work, and I've been doing it now for, I don't know, 5 or 6 years, doing queer aging work, is how absent it is from the conversation, how absent it is from a social justice context, how invisible old and older LGBT people are unless we somehow, like myself, have been in the movement for long enough that we're kind of a fixture in the movement, and so you're all watching us get old. But it's not an agenda. It's not considered a social justice component of how we build an activist movement for the lifespan. It's not considered an important political issue, and it's also not considered important, I think, in the dialogue about who we are as activists building a queer vision for change. And so I was really thrilled, both because I think aging is a profound issue that is going to become more and more evident as an issue because of baby boomers, really. Because the baby boomer generation, as everybody's now kind of beginning to talk about, are getting old, like myself. And we are going to change the demographic in America. America is now going to be a country of old people. It's not going to be a country of young people. We are going to fundamentally, because there are so many of us in that baby boomer generation, fundamentally alter the demographic of who is and what age groups are significant components of the American map. And for queer people, right now there's an estimate that there's about 3 million of us that are 55 and older, LGBT identified. That number is expected to double by 2030. That's a whole lot of us. That's 6 million LGBT people over 55, and many of us will be in our 80s, not in our 50s. So both in terms of the movement for LGBT activism and social justice, but also because America is going to find itself confronting a huge constituency that they're completely unprepared for. We have no healthcare system that can deal with the healthcare needs of this country, period. And for sure, since aging often makes you more fragile, makes you more dependent on healthcare intervention and support, not having a healthcare system is going to be profoundly impactful for a whole group of people you can predict are going to need more and more support and intervention in order that we survive. And since, you know, the problem, I think, is often that the limits of identity politics for queer people means that if something isn't narrowly identified as queer, you know, marriage somehow becomes a queer issue, but universal health care does not. It means that we have problems, I think, often figuring out how to fight for the issues that are really the profoundly impactful issues for our communities. And this will be, I think, very, very true around aging. Aging is not seen as an LGBT issue, is not identified as an LGBT issue. So then, you know, my worry has, and really what I've been talking to LGBT organizations about is, if we don't do something now, if we don't really get off our butts and begin to articulate the needs and do the advocacy and institutional building around aging issues in the queer world, we're going to face another moment like we did in the HIV epidemic, where we have a huge demographic that we need to support and absolutely no capacity to manage the multiple needs that, that frame getting old in this country. Because getting old in this country is about being, at best, patronized, usually ignored, and often hated. Being seen as a dependent, as somehow less important, less valuable, less vital to the agenda of our communities and in social change work. So I think it's a moment when we're just before, I'm 62 and I'm right at the edge of that baby boomer moment, that generation, but it's about to sweep in, and neither the aging movements that now exist, that do senior services, they're completely incapable of imagining how to deal with LGBT elders. In fact, they pretty frequently say to me, we don't have any of those. It's always interesting, you know, as you watch them tell you that they don't have any of us in their, name the setting. And you can kind of look out at folks having lunch and kind of go, and there's the dyke, and there's the, you know.